Some years ago, Devi was in India on a trip that I was not with her. And she went to a very special region. Always. Up north, near the mountains. And this region has a few unusual yogis. They're called Agora yogis, H-E-O-R-A. You usually don't find them unless they want to be found. If they're very genuine, they're quite advanced. And they love to do experiments on energy. That's their forte. And they wear black. This is unusual, huh? Black.
Swamiji, what does the Agora stand for? The word?
I don't know. I'll have to find out. Often Sanskrit words have many meanings. Huh? So, everybody sat down, and Teresa engaged this one fellow who was there smoking. He was observing everybody, coolly. And he inquired, "Where are you from?" And Teresa popped up. "We're from Swami Rama's tradition." His face changed. "Really? You've been taught by the master, Swami Rama?" And she said, "Yes." "What did he teach you, if I may ask?" And she turned to everybody and said, "Let's chant. Let's show them what we learned." They began the chant, what we chant here at night and in the morning. He was so impressed. He had never heard this sung by Westerners. So he had a new idea about it, some of these Americans. And so they engaged in a conversation on international terms. What's the future going to be like? What's the major problem today? And he looked at Devi. He said, "I'll tell you what the major problem is that's worrying us, that's worrying Mother Nature. It's the same problem that came many, many, many decades ago by a Danish philosopher called Søren Kierkegaard. Some of you may have heard him. And this was what Søren says in his journals, which you can get, they're translated, they're fascinating. And he said the same thing as this yogi. Quote, "If I were a physician and I could prescribe only one remedy for all the ills of the modern world, I would prescribe silence. For even if the Word of God be proclaimed in the modern world, no one can hear it. There's too much noise. Therefore, first create silence." And that's exactly what the Agora Baba told Devi. There's too much noise going on. External noise, people. First create silence. All right. You're all here. First of all, you want to be here. And you want to be here because I think you enjoy the camaraderie. It takes you out of your routine. It takes you away from your noise. Now, a certain amount of noise has to be in the world. It can't be helped. But there certainly is a difference between when you sit in the forest and hear the birds or the wind whistling through the trees and then sitting next to I-94. Quite a bit. You want to get away. And if you've gone to India, or any place where you can rise above the sea level terrain, something magical often happens as you go higher. It's almost a paradox. You start to feel or hear the vibration of silence. I can't describe it to you. You have to come with me or find it yourself. What are we going to do in a world that's so full of noise? And I don't think it's going to stop. Okay. It's almost like ecology. But this is the ecology of quietness that we're concerned about. The first thing you have to do then, to preserve yourself, your sanity, your balance, your nerves, you have to take refuge in the silence within. There's no substitute. Search within, find it. Because that'll connect you then in special ways to the silence that's in nature and around us. One of the things Davy likes to do is go for a drive in the country. And I think part of it is not just the beauty and getting away from the heavy traffic, but there's a peacefulness that's the product of that silence. We need it biologically, we need it psychologically. Your mind, you can't even count the number of sounds that go through your mind. Remember, every thought is a sound. Every thought is a sound. It's a vibration. You know how chattering the mind can be at times. You just want to shut it up. So you have to probe within to find, how can I find that haven of silence within? It's there. You were born with it. In fact, the world came out of silence. What was there before Om? Silence. So even before any manifestation, on any level, there has to be silence. There has to be what you could say broadly, the unmanifested state. And the essence of it is silence. Because every single item in this created or manifested universe can be reduced back to sound waves. Physicists know that. It's kind of funny to think that we can't create something without making noise. But some noises are very harmonious. What I think the Agora was mentioning, and I think what Soren is getting at, was the cacophony of clashing sounds, unnecessary sounds. Sounds that just, bump into each other and increase their agitation in our hearts, irritate us. Turn the radio down, turn the TV off. One of the nicer things I think about modern cars is they're getting quieter inside. You can hear the music finally. Silence is part of our essence. You need to nurture the soul with it at times. Otherwise you dry up. You'll give in to the noise and it'll just keep you in a stress mode. We live in a city. We can't flee it. We can't suppress it. So we have to find a refuge inside. Years ago, when Swamiji and all of us were building up the Institute in Pennsylvania, I didn't leave the grounds for 6 months. About 450 acres, right next to a national forest preserve, so that we knew nobody could ever build next to us. And there were rolling hills, and there was one particular hill up on behind Swamiji's cabin that I used to like to go up because it had a long slope. You'd see the deer down there. And you could watch them. So we finally put a couple of benches up there. And one day I decided to have a little experiment. This was at the time of The Sound of Music movie. So I announced to two people who didn't know each other, not too close. I said, have you ever gone up that hill? Oh, occasionally. Did you know that's where they made the opening scene of The Sound of Music? The hills are alive. No. You're kidding. Would I fib to you?
Yes.
Really? It took one day and came back to me. Did you know, Justin? Really? Is that what? Well, we should call it The Sound of Music Hill. And it stuck. So look what my sound did. So one day I went up there, and it was dusk when the deer come out sometimes before they camp down. I saw a group of them down there, a small herd, maybe a dozen. Suddenly I thought, I think I'll meditate up here. Now I had a little desire in me. I wonder if those deer will come up. Or will they be afraid because I'm up here? So I just closed my eyes. I don't know how long I was in. Probably not too long. And all of a sudden I heard... I slowly opened my... I was surrounded by all of them. They were 6 feet from me. I thought, my silence didn't threaten them at all. My presence. Because it was filled with my silence. I said, that's the secret to the yogis who can walk among the fearsome animals. And they just let you walk. Like his master. His master used to walk among cobras and just pet them. Oh my God. So I'm going to get a rock. I said, oh, come on. So when you're silent, the world's at peace around you. That's the key today. We have to be the ambassadors of silence. Because when people are agitated by the sounds, they can't think clearly. Or even if they can, they can't stay with it. It loses its power because another sound comes in and competes with it. So by you just gently, hey, nothing forced, you take a few minutes out and you go search for your silence. That's what your meditation is. And then time goes by, occasionally. But you have to be that ambassador. That's your calling, huh? That's why you're here in this century. One of the reasons. This is not arbitrary, the fact that you've chosen this tradition. They chose you. Today I initiated a 3rd grader. She was thrilled. And she couldn't stop smiling. I kept watching her. I said, you know, you're stuck with me now. I'm your big brother. I have to teach you everything. Oh boy. And she wanted a mala. And she picked out a pearl mala. She wanted to wear it. She's old enough. Find that silence. Don't give up. Even if only if it's fleeing. It's beckoning you. Huh? It's playing hide and seek. Go get it. It'll come. Just like those deer came. Unexpectedly. That opens up the mind differently then. When you're silent, you can observe. You can see things. You don't have a vested interest. It's not grabbing, it's not gimme. You're just silently observing. It's amazing what you see. Yeah.
In getting more tuned into that silence, do we get a little vulnerable in that sense, in the sense that noise seems to start becoming like kryptonite?
Yes,
Yeah,
good analogy. Now let me tell you what happened to me in that regard. I go back to the story when I was helping Swamiji and build up the Institute. Now I've returned to it. Took a long time. So here I am, 6 months helping them. Every day in that peaceful 450 acres. Oh boy, with the pines and the woods, jogging up and down the aisles of the road there. Wonderful. Even discovered that the deer do pranayama at 5 o'clock at night. They're doing it! I was watching them. I thought I'd really get one up on Swamiji. Oh yeah, it's called barking deer. Oh. Thank you, sir. Glad you knew. I thought I'd had him on. He knew that about it. He says, here, let me show you how to do it correctly. Thank you, sir. So he showed me how to do it. I've never taught that. I keep forgetting to show you people. Anyway, so he says, Justin, we're going to New York. You're going to open up East-West Bookstore. You set up all the courses. You write up the reviews. And you go in and start teaching meditation. Okay. Now this is New York City. I had no idea what was waiting for me. So I drive in. Oh, this ain't exactly the woods in here. I was going crazy. The sounds were, just hitting me, just back and forth. I was just like this, huh? I thought, I couldn't wait to get home. So that night, Mr. Know-It-All, of course, I'm having tea with him with Davy, and he says, hey, Jess, how'd you like New York? I said, it's interesting. Yeah, I know. Are you a hothouse plant? Now he got my Irish up. I said, you got to find your silence to survive in New York. I came in with a naive idea. It's like a Minnesotan going on a trip around the world, thinking everybody's going to be nice and polite. Huh? Forget it. So I go into New York thinking it's an extension of where I was just, in my feelings. So I said, okay, what do I got to do? And I sat down and I realized I've got to bring my silence with me. I've got to let that protect me. So the next time I went in, a week later, I was ready for New York. I never got bothered again. I kept the chaos up there. I had an invisible ring of silence around me because I stayed inside. I became the silent witness. And I began to discover how to live in the world and yet remain above. That's what it's all about. Your silence is the secret door, so you don't get trapped in the room of chaos, which is the world. But it's a glass door, so you see through it. You don't want to leave go of reality. Then strange things happen. But you want to be able to deal with it, cope with it, grapple with it, enjoy it, without letting it take you for the ride. And that you've got to learn. Each one of you does it your own way. But as far as I can see, what enables us to do it is to learn to foster and simply enjoy the silence. Give yourself a chance. The mind wants you to keep thinking, and you got all those desires, all those unfulfilled tasks, and all the things you've forgotten, you're now starting to remember. And then the unexpected thoughts that come in, old memories, and it's okay. That's still part of the outer world. It's slipped inside you. But it's not at your core. Your core is silence. Because out of that silent core comes all your virtue, all your generosity, your thoughtfulness, your kindness, your love. You can only thrive in silence, ultimately. Because in silence you recognize what is truly there, instead of fostering it over and with the veneer of your desires. You need desires, you need to fulfill them, but you do it on your terms, not out of compulsion or pressure from some authority figure. That's what yoga and meditation is trying to do, huh? We don't have dogmas in yoga. We have guidelines. Guidelines are relative. What's the best one to use here and now? Davy was reading me the 8 Noble Truths that Buddha put down. Well, according to Buddha, meaning his followers did it later. And remember, Buddha was a Raja Yogi in our tradition. When she went through them, right thinking, right action, right. I see, you know what the bottom line is? Put the bottom line, and put one word from our great Western tradition, prudence. That's what prudence is. To do the right thing at the right time in the right way, and that's all the Noble Truths. So it's on both sides of the Atlantic, huh? Now you can do that without a lot of strain if you foster silence occasionally. Because it gives you a little time to rethink. Take another look. Should I continue in this direction, this way? Oh, there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. If the facts, what's at hand, calls for it, that's intelligent. So you and I are on this journey. And part of that journey we have to devote to silence. So we survive optimally. In 1984, I went to India 3 times. I don't know why, but I went 3 times. On the 3rd trip, I was with Glad Ghosh. Glad and I were in superb condition. So we took off ahead of the whole crowd. We went walking in the morning to the next camp, which is usually 2 or 3 hours. And we arrived, and we were about an hour ahead of everybody. We were just sitting there waiting for Swami to come out and give a talk. And all of a sudden it hit me. Just a spontaneous thought came up that I began to dwell upon. Why did I come to India 3 times? Was I looking for something? Did I sense there was something I needed, or was there a privation that was to be fulfilled by my presence here in India? Then I suddenly realized, I don't need India. I don't need the Himalayas, they're in me. The heights are in me, and the depths. I don't need to come back here anymore. I don't need to come back. If I come freely. But not because I think I'm going to find something that's magical, like so many people think. Oh boy, the esotericness, the ancient, traditions. They forget. They're still looking outside. So suddenly Swami comes up. He looks around and says, why do you come to India? The Himalayas are inside you. He stole it. He was peeking. He took off on that. He says, you don't have to come here. Don't think it's magical. Somehow you can't find it in America. Because what you're looking for is in you. In the silence. He says, that's all this country's for, really. To remind you of what's already in you. That's what nature is. It's a symbol of what you already possess. And as you harmonize with it, it opens it up. That's what his talk was all about. Strange, here we are in India, and he's telling us to go home. So again, you're an ambassador. People will know you by your silence. Because when Swamiji was asked, what's the secret to all your powers? He said meditation, meaning the silence. The treasures are there but they won't be uncovered unless you enter the silence. Because then you have the power to handle them. I know that sounds strange. Silence is a power. It is. Yes, sir.
What about coming out of meditation and being extremely sore?
Where?
Jaw, neck, chest, back,
Okay.
toes.
Excellent. Your brain has just informed you of where you're holding on to stress.
Can you say thank you to the brain and
Yeah.
blow it off?
So it's telling you your body is carrying stress. And finally you got yourself into a situation of silence where you can now become aware of that sustaining pain in your muscles. We have that happen in gentle yoga. When you stretch a certain way and hold the stretch, all of a sudden new pain comes in. Because it doesn't want to let go of the old constrictions, and here you're trying to reach out. So that's a good sign. You know now you have to be more diligent in taking care of the body, whether it's exercise, hatha yoga, whatever, massage, and that's how you'll get rid of that pain.
Moji,
Yes, sir.
any reason the Agora monks wear black?
Davy might know. I was trying to figure out from a symbolic point of view. Colors. Now we know white holds it all in. Black repels, and I thought, why? Why do they wear black? I really don't know. Never got a chance to ask Swami that one.
Less easier to spot in the trees.
Maybe. Whoa!
They can walk anywhere at night.
Well, that become the camouflage one.
When they meditate in the bat caves.
There you go. I don't know. That's another interesting question. Agora and black. Hey, I'll check that out. I'll type it in and see what I can find. And she was at a place where Swamiji and his master used to be. There was even a plaque commemorating something. Get her to tell you. Ask that question when she's up next time.
Finally have a question for her.
Yeah. Well, gang, shall we go into the silence? Let's give it a shot.